My first attempt at white Niagara wine with grocery store juice came out so good that my wife asked me to make another batch, and I've decided to double down. So this is that video. So I got myself a 2-gallon fermenting bucket and 4 gallons or 2 gallons of juice. So let's just get started. This is pretty simple to start. I want to take an initial gravity reading on this. So what that'll give us an indication of both when our fermenting is done and what our final alcohol percentage is. So the reading here, I can get this. Doesn't want to stay in the middle here. Sometimes that happens. Looks to be about 1.069, maybe 7.0, which is very close, I believe, to what we had last time. We might get 8 or 9% alcohol on a nice dry wine. Obviously can't shake this big bucket to oxygenate it, so pouring it in roughly will do that. Also makes a bit of a mess, and one more half gallon. Splash too much here. Okay. So now all we need is yeast. And for my 1 gallon batch, I put in a teaspoon. A teaspoon would be enough for this because the yeast grow and multiply. But just for consistency's sake, I'm going to put in 2 teaspoons. And that's all floating, so I'm just going to get a spoon and stir that in. Give those yeast the best chance. To get going. Put a lid on with an airlock. And we're done. So this just needs to sit for a few weeks, and then we'll rack it and add some oak chips like I did last time to get that barrel aged conditioning. And if this goes the same as last time, then this will be ready to bottle in about 45 days. It's time to rack the Niagara 2.0 wine. It's a 2-gallon batch, and I made it in this plastic bucket. And so I make beer in a 5-gallon plastic bucket all the time, and that's never been an issue because beer is done quickly. You know that within 2 weeks the beer is fermented and done, and you're basically ready to bottle. But wine is a little trickier, and so in the glass you can see when it's gone clear and is ready to rack, but in the bucket I have no way of knowing what this is going to look like. I haven't opened this bucket since I pitched the yeast. Okay, so that was May 15th, which was 38 days ago. So it's a little longer than I let the 1-gallon batch go because I could see the 1-gallon batch was clear. This I couldn't see, so I just let it go a little while longer, and we'll see it together when I open it up. Take this out. Oh, and it's very nice and clear. All right, so that's a relief. Smells like wine. I'm going to rack this into a new clean bucket, and then I'm going to, like the last time, put some oak chips in there and let it condition for a while. Although I'll bet this is quite drinkable just the way it is. So everything here has been sanitized, okay, and so I've got an auto siphon here that starts the siphon, just makes it easier to start the siphon. Put that on the bottom so that we don't accidentally suck up any of the yeast that's sitting on the bottom, because I can't see it from the side, so it's hard for me to know how far down it is. Put on a hose. Hose goes into the bucket, and then this clip will help me hold it on the side of the bucket here, since I only have 2 hands. So, slide that down, and I'm just going to gently start the siphon, and gravity does the rest. So that's why I have 2 different heights here, because the siphon needs gravity. And so we are pulling that down. Okay, there's very little grease in the bottom, which is good. We got a little bit in here, but that'll settle out. Okay, so this was very clear. I'm going to take a gravity reading so that we know that it's done fermenting, although I'm very confident that it's done fermenting after all this time. and also so that I can calculate the percent alcohol, because I know the starting gravity, and if we know how much sugar the yeast converted to alcohol, we know how much alcohol there is. So I'll put the alcohol percentage on the screen and calculate it later. But for now, yeah, this is all sanitized, so it's okay to put it back. Back in. I'm hoping this went completely dry. We like our wines dry. Yeah, it's completely dry. It's 0.996, it looks like. So, so less than 1. So you know that all the sugar was consumed and turned into alcohol. So I'm going to write that down. Okay. 0.996. Okay. We started out with an initial gravity of 1.069. So I'm going to take a little taste. Like I said, I'm guessing from looking at this that it's quite drinkable now, but I think the oak adds a nice, it just smooths it out and gives it a nice character. Yeah, it's good. It's a young wine, but it is tasty. Better chilled. Okay, this is obviously room temperature. So let's measure out some oak. Now, in my initial 1 gallon batch of this, I used 2 ounces of oak. We have 2 gallons, so I'm going to use 4 ounces of oak. Well, that's 4.2, but short. And I think 2/10 of an ounce isn't any difference. So I'll put that in. Okay. Now, this oak will float. Obviously, wood floats, but as it gets saturated with the wine, it'll sink to the bottom, or at least most of it will. So I'm just stirring this up gently to get the oak chips all wet and to degas the wine a little bit. You can, I don't know if you can see, but there's bubbles. You probably saw some bubbles in the siphon. That's just carbon dioxide that's sort of suspended in solution because it hasn't been agitated at all. Now, if I wanted to, when I bottle this, I could add some more sugar and get a carbonated wine. But I think this Niagara, I think, is good still, and so we won't carbonate it. And this gas just does not add any goodness to the wine, so I'm just going to stir it out. And we'll put the lid back on. And the airlock to keep any nasties out. Tricky thing with the bucket is that the lid is flexible, so it plays games with the airlock. But we're good. So I will let this sit. I think the last batch I left on the oak for 3 weeks, so I'm going to leave this on the oak for at least that long, and then we'll be ready to bottle. It's been kind of a busy summer, but it's finally time, I think, to bottle my Niagara 2.0 wine. It's been about 12 weeks since I pitched the yeast, and about 6 weeks since I racked it into conditioning and added the oak chips. So hopefully everything's clear and tasty, and we can get started bottling it. So I haven't opened this or looked at it. Okay, it doesn't look super clear. I'm not super happy about that, but we'll rack it off and see what we got. Okay, it's clearer than I thought it was just from looking in the bucket with the wood chips and everything. So I'm going to stir this and degas it a little bit. There still is some dissolved carbon dioxide. And I'll take a hydrometer reading to figure out the ABV. It's about 0.993. 0.993. So it's a nice dry wine. As you can see, it's nice and clear. So the next step is to bottle this. So that's siphoning again, which means we have to raise that up. And then to the end of our siphon, I'm going to add a bottle of wine, which is a tube with a stem valve. So that goes in there, that goes in there. And this little spring-loaded valve, some of them are not spring-loaded, but this one is. The wine won't flow until you push down on the bottom of the bottle, and as soon as you pick it up, it stops flowing, so you don't hopefully spill wine all over the place. So I'll stick that on there, and I have some bottles. We don't need this cap because there's no sediment in the bottom. So now I hold the stem valve down and get the siphon started. So we're ready to label and seal the bottles. I'll do that in a few minutes and give you a time lapse of that. But first, let's give it a taste. Pretty good. It's nice and dry. It's got more oak character than the first time, which makes sense because it's been sitting on the oak longer. It's not as sharply Niagara as the previous one because it's aged longer, and so overall I think that's a very good wine. And inexpensive and easy to make from grocery store grape juice. So I'd call that a success. Are these shrink wrap bottle tops anything more than decorative? I don't know. I have used bottles with used screw tops, so I figure it helps seal them a little bit. They're only 10 cents a piece, and they make me feel better about it. And they're they're pretty. They make it feel like real wine. So should you do that? That's your call. But there we go. We got 9.5 bottles of wine, and time to start thinking about making another batch.